It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan in Trouble podcast. I am Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Jaconis. Pulling back the curtain, just a reminder, as you hear this on Monday, we do tape these on Sundays, and so we have just finished game 2 of the most frustrating day of baseball I've experienced in a while, and we're Tigers fans, so that has to be saying something about how today went. Luke, let's just kind of get right into it with we experienced for the first time since 1912, and I think with good reason, this was the first doubleheader in Major League Baseball that was scheduled to be less than 9 innings for both games. So we played 2 7-inning games today, and I know you definitely have some thoughts. So I'm going to just turn the floor over to you as we dive into this initial part of the discussion.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, hello. Good to see you. Hello, Tiger fans. Although Sunday did not end like we'd wanted to, we're still 5-5. We're a 500 baseball team. And I think we're way better than that record indicates. I just want to throw that out there to start off with. But let's talk about this doubleheader business. I hate, H-A-T-E, all capitals, this rule of 7-inning doubleheaders. I think it is stupid. I think the argument that you want to make that it's to protect the players from potentially interacting with each other longer than they need to be, I think that is a crock of an excuse. I'm sorry if you think that playing an additional 4 innings of baseball is going to be that detrimental to players potentially contracting coronavirus. We've got bigger issues at stake. Right now we've got players out there who are reportedly going to strip clubs and casinos. Let's work with those idiots first and reeling them in, and not personally and deliberately sullying the name of baseball and the game of baseball. And I said this to Alex before we started going, maybe I'm kind of being a little bit, old and curmudgeony here. I just hate the fact that we have to go 7 innings. Baseball is a 9-inning game, and you never know what can happen. You can be down 6-0 in the first, but at a 7-run comeback in the 9th and win the thing 7-6. And by the way, I'm going to get a little biased here. The Tigers thus far this season have had their late game heroics come in innings 7 and 8. So 6, 7, and 8 for that matter. So it's frustrating to me that is something that has been taken away from us. Now, I get that. If anyone who isn't a Tigers fan were to be watching this right now, they'd be like, well, obviously I'm just sour grapes. And that's probably there's probably a hint of that too right here, because I just watched the Tigers lose 2 games on a doubleheader, which I think they honestly should have won that first game. But, it's just kind of my own thing. I just don't like it. And I feel like it takes away opportunities. And that's even if, let's say, hypothetically, they played 7 innings, and in that 6th inning, they got that last run across, and they went up 4-3. And then Joe comes in the 7th and locks it down. And then the Reds lose 4-3. I could see how the Reds fans and Reds players would be upset if the shoe was on the other foot. So, and who knows, this week, if we even get these Cardinal games, maybe we win a couple of these 7-inning doubleheaders. And then my tune changes. I don't think it will, though. I just don't like. I understand that we had to decrease the number of games given everything that has gone on this year, not only with coronavirus, but then we had to go through those hellish negotiations between ownership and the players. And it's a shame that we could only do 60, but we got 60. We have to make the best of it and enjoy what we've got. I understand why we have to go to 60, though. I do. We've shortened the number of games. Why are we now shortening the number of innings? And I'm sorry, I don't believe this excuse of it's to protect players from potentially contracting coronavirus. If 4 more innings is going to be what is going to be scaring people away, that might contract players contracting coronavirus, then I'm sorry, let's cancel the season, because I think it's silly. What are we going to do next? Are we going to start shortening how many balls it takes to get a walk? We're going to go 3 balls, you get to take your base. Are we going to start with a 1-on-1 count like it's softball? Like it's just very, very frustrating. And again, it's probably a bit of sour grapes because the Tigers didn't win either of these games. Then I am a little bit pissed off about that. But I didn't like it. I flat out didn't like it. I think this is 100% messing with the integrity of the game. And that is the one thing I have said from the beginning. I don't care if we got to go 90 games, 60 games, 45 games, whatever number of games we have to do, that's fine. We'll take it. We'll deal with it. Just don't mess with the game. And that's what they did with these doubleheader rules. And I just think and I know there's also the argument too, maybe not coronavirus. They're doing it to keep, pitchers not having to run through so many guys. But for example, in the second game, Trevor Bauer just got a win for throwing a 7-inning complete game shutout. And he's probably pumping his chest because he's a little douche. But I mean, it's just frustrating. The whole thing is frustrating. Again, it's probably sour grapes. We just got done watching the final, that second game. Wasn't happy with how today shaped up at all. And I don't want to say that they're not wins for the Reds because they will go down in the books as wins. We can't start using that argument like, well, certain, things happen this year because in that case, this whole season's a wash because then, there'll be people at the end of the season who say, well, it was only a 60-game season, so whatever. The Reds win, tip your hats to them. But I'm thinking right now as a Tigers fan, we just split our season series with them 3-3. Well, we actually went out there and won 3 games where we played the entire time. You guys didn't. You played 2 games where you had to only play to 7 innings, and then 1 you beat us straight up. And the other argument I know people are going to make too is, what about rain delays? What about rain delays? Rain delays are completely different. Rain delays are a thing where if there's a rain delay happening or there's weather, whatever it might be, they will try to wait it out as long as they can. But at a certain point in time, if they're waiting in the dugout for 5 hours and they're like, hey guys, this isn't going to let up. We're in the 6th or 7th inning. Let's just call the game. That's fine. That's a predetermined thing. This was pretty much just picked up out of a whim. This just got announced, I think, on Friday. It was during the game on Friday. They said, yeah, just so everyone knows, this season will be double headers. And I also get why they're doing it too, because the season is shortened. They don't want, 9-inning games and potentially going any further than they already have to because they're on such a time crunch with the schedule. I just don't like this because I think it is deliberately and solely messing with the integrity of the game, and it pisses me off. Whew.
Yeah, I think so I went into today a little bit more open-minded about it, mostly because my experience with the extra innings change, starting with the runner on second, I was a little bit against it before the season. Then I saw it in action and I was like, okay, this still feels like baseball. There's not there's baseball strategy to get you into a position to win. Like, it is still very, very baseball. But today, definitely, it just felt like there were weird managerial decisions being made in the pulling starting pitchers in the second inning when maybe you definitely wouldn't have in a 9-inning game. And you would have let those guys kind of pitch through this issue and get through that. And so it robs them of some of that development that would probably be good for them. And 2, it changes the way the game goes because obviously it puts a little bit more, actually, I think puts more stress on your bullpen because you don't want your starter to go deep into a game and get you way out of it. And in a scenario like that, and also, then you don't have to rotate through your bullpen. So the teams with better bullpens don't have that advantage necessarily. There's all sorts of things that I find wrong with it. Like, I would rather have seen if the concern was playing too long of games on days where we needed the double headers, I would either rather have them just like not make up some of these games. Or even just say, okay, this is going to be a double header. There's no extra innings. If the game is tied at the end of 9, it is a tie. And we introduce ties into baseball. I would almost rather introduce ties than I do a 7-inning game.
Yeah, I think I'd rather just stop watching baseball if I have to keep dealing with 7-inning games and then bringing ties into baseball. I think I'll just probably stop watching. And I don't want to go on another kind of rant and tangent here, Alex, but you and I discussed it before we started, rolling here. I also think this, and I, by the way, I want to say this, although I hate the 7-inning doubleheaders, I don't think there's a shot in hell that these transfer to next season at all. I don't think I have no concern about that. Yeah. I'm not worried about that either. So I think this is just a legitimate thing where it's just kind of like, we have to just deal with it for now. Eventually it will go back to normal. So in that kind of regard, I need to kind of tell myself like, dude, chill out, relax. How many times have I even said on the show, it's going to be different. We just need to kind of roll with the punches. And this is kind of one of those things where I need to practice what I preach and just kind of roll with the punches. And I can admittedly raise my hand and say, I need to do that. What I worry sometimes with Major League Baseball, though, is, and again, this might be a bit going off the rails here, but not everything has to be for everybody. Not every sport has to be for everybody. Okay. I understand that baseball viewership numbers are down and they want to find a way to make the game more accessible, more appealing to the quote unquote average fan, or the average Joe is kind of like, yeah, I don't really like baseball. Or maybe they go to one baseball game every 5 years and then they have their fill. That's great. And that's a great thing to do to try to be more inclusive to everybody and try to get everybody involved. But at the end of the day, there's certain people, and there's a large majority of people who just don't like the game of baseball. And that's totally fine. We don't have to like everything. Alex, I know for a fact there are certain things that you hate that I love, and vice versa. I know that for a fact. And that's just what makes humans humans. So I'm sorry, but I don't think we need to try to sully the game in certain areas just to appeal to a wider fan base. That ruins then for the diehard fans like you and me and the thousands of other people who love the game just the way it is. And I'm also, even if you are trying to make the game more appealing to most people, you think really if someone thinks like, oh, okay, well now the games have gone from 3 hours and 20 minutes to 2 hours and 50 minutes, you've got me sold. No, no one cares. They want the game to be out as, or some people just like to go to baseball games to be outside and drink expensive beers and drinks and get hot dogs and just be outside in the sun with their friends. I mean, that's just like what people do. You go to games all the time. You'll see people who are on their phones not watching the game, and that's great. To each their own. You paid your ticket. You can do whatever you want. But I want to kind of plead in a way with Major League Baseball. It's a great gesture to try to make the game more inclusive, but at the same time, then don't cancel out and marginalize us diehards who love this game just as it is. And when I was watching the 7-inning doubleheader today, that thought kept running in my mind. Like, I know they're not doing it for that reason, but maybe that is kind of in the back of their minds. Like, well, maybe this is a way we can kind of make the games more appealing to the more quote unquote regular or average or casual fan. So I use the analogy with you, Alex. I'm going to use it again. I don't like the sport of NASCAR. I'm never going to like the sport of NASCAR. It just does not appeal to me whatsoever. But I know that there are millions of fans, as I said, Alex, your lovely mother-in-law included, who loves the sport. And that's awesome. Let those fans enjoy the sport as it is. I don't need them to take the Daytona 500 down to the Daytona 300 just to appeal to a guy like me. Don't do it. Let the fans enjoy it. And for those who don't enjoy it, just be like, well, we tried. I'm sure there's plenty of other things that they can watch for their disposal. There's a lot of sports out there. I'm sure people can find their own. So I know that was a bit tangent and ranty, but when I was watching the game today, that kind of thought was lingering in my mind. It's great to try to make it more inclusive for everybody. I truly think that's an awesome sentiment. But if it gets to a point where it starts destroying the game for us who love it as is, stop. And I think with this thing they are doing this season, it's not that it's totally ruined it for me, but it definitely kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. I was like, damn, man, this isn't the game that I love. Like, this isn't. I was always told you got 9 outs, and you got 9 innings, 3 outs an inning. Go out there, play your ass off. Like, and we've seen ourselves like with this team this year. The 7th and 8th inning, they're comeback kings. I mean, they were down 1 run. And that Reds bullpen sucks. So who's to say if we got 2 more innings, we couldn't have done some damage? So I mean, I know I'm kind of getting a little bit more biased and probably a little bit more sour grapes with that regard, but in general, it is what it is. I don't think it's permanent by any stretch of the imagination, but I just didn't like it. I'm going to keep complaining about it for the next 60 games. I'll try not to be so mopey the next time we talk about it. I'm sure we will. We at least might be talking about it this week when the Tigers and Cardinals do a doubleheader on Wednesday, if we even get to watch that game. Yeah. So I've said my piece, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts to put a bow on that. Not a fan. Yeah, right. Not a fan.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring up, and I don't want to keep harping, because I agree with you that I don't think there's any concern at all that these 7-inning doubleheaders will be with us beyond this COVID season. Mm-hmm. And for a number of reasons. One, there's too much money to be made in 2 full games being played on a day that the owners aren't going to go for it either. I think that this is a concession kind of by everybody to just kind of make this season as smooth and cohesive as possible. That being said, I do think that there is a missed opportunity that baseball, and more on the broadcast side of baseball, is missing in this season, where there are no fans in the stands. And so your audience is entirely on TV, and it feels like a great season to like really experiment with stuff in the broadcast. That what can we do in this broadcast that we've never really done before, that we maybe couldn't do before because we couldn't get a camera into that spot, or because we would be messing with somebody's view, or we couldn't do this. And let's try some of that stuff, and let's create a better TV product that doesn't mess with the integrity of the game, so that your diehards are still watching a 9-inning baseball game with 3 outs per inning. And just like we can look back at a box score from 110 years ago and tell the story of that baseball game from it, we could still do that. And we can't really do that with these 7-inning games because it doesn't line up. The stats don't match up. And so that's kind of my take on it, that I would rather see them, if they are looking at this season as a place to experiment in some ways, to see what kind of works and what doesn't. And not saying that the 7-inning is necessarily that, but that there is an opportunity there for them to really try some stuff in these broadcasts. What can we do? What do we do in the third? Like, you think about the stadium experience, especially in minor league baseball, is so great, is so special, is so much fun. It is still there in Major League Baseball, though a little bit different. And so why not try and take some of that fun that happens in the stadium experience and bring it into the TV experience, especially in a season where those in-stadium experience people aren't doing their job there. So bring them into the studio and do some of that kind of fun stuff in the broadcast, especially a sport that is so regionally broadcast as baseball is. These are all local audiences. Like, obviously the national games, Sunday Night Baseball is happening while we record this. Those are going to be a different thing entirely. Those are for games of wider interest to the diehard fans of the sport. But your local regional game broadcast, let's have some fun with that. Let's experiment. Let's go down that road. But all that being said, let's kind of move into the bulk of the show here. And we'll review the week that was. We've got some continued impact of COVID-19 on the season. We're going to talk about Joe Kelly, and we're going to kind of look at the week ahead that we think we're going to have, but we may not have, which will also be part of that COVID-19 continued impact conversation as the impact of COVID-19 hits a little bit closer to home. Not yet in the Tigers clubhouse. We had Daniel Norris take a start today, who had tested positive before summer camp started, but otherwise it is in the St. Louis Cardinals, which obviously we have games with this coming week scheduled. So we will see how that goes, but let's finish up the conversation about the week that was. Obviously split the series with the Royals, ended up losing this side of the series to split the season series with the Reds. Kind of a mixed bag of a week. Saw a lot of really great stuff. Saw a lot of stuff that we'd also rather forget. But as you said in the beginning here, Luke, we did come out of this week. We are a 500 ball club. And ultimately, I think that that's right where you want to be at this point. Obviously, you would love to be above 500, but you certainly are happy to not be below 500 at this point in the season. And because I think 30-30 is going to be good enough for the playoffs. So that puts us in a good spot. Luke, your kind of general impressions from this week.
Almost felt like at times 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I think you could almost make an argument of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Had a rough start to that series with the Royals. We kind of talked about that on the Thursday show, but then we won those 2 back-to-back. Those are some really good ball games. Dropped that 4th game. Did we talk about the 4th game or had that? I don't think we had talked about that.
Yeah, we were ahead of that. The Thursday show was ahead of that game.
So that's right. Yeah. So that game was a little bit. That felt like a winnable. I mean, they all feel like winnable games in some aspect, but that one, I just had a few questions that didn't really sit with me. Obviously, Jeimer Candelario, who had a much better game, Sunday's game for the listeners listening on Monday, but had a much better game on Sunday. But that Thursday game, man, he was really swinging a cold stick. So I was surprised to see Gardy take that at bat in the 9th. Just needed that one guy on, and hopefully could get the big hit and tie the thing up. But that's in the past. I don't want to harp too much on that. They ended up splitting that series with the Royals. The Friday night game against the Reds, though, was really nice. A really great. I tweeted out from our account, that was the best win of the season thus far in my eyes, because I felt like it was the most cohesive team win. It didn't rely on a late inning home run or just the bullpen or whatever it might be. We had great starting pitching from Spencer Turnbull, who I think I really like what I'm seeing out of Spencer Turnbull so far this year, and I hope he can keep it up, because I definitely could see a future with him long term in Detroit. I think we could maybe find him somewhere.
While we're on Spencer Turnbull, I want to pose the question to you.
Go ahead.
Right now, at this point in the season, 10 games in, he feels like the ace of the staff.
Oh,
in
100%.
terms of performances that we've seen. I think that
Yeah.
he's the one who's got his head on the most correct. He
Mhm.
his final line on Friday night was 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. So
Yep.
I think we would certainly take that from our starters every single game if
Absolutely.
that's what they could give us. So that to me, yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted to pose the question to you as well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Is Turnbull the ace of the staff at this moment?
As of now, yes. Through the first 2 starts, I definitely think he is the ace of the staff. Kind of expanding with the rest of that game, though, I just thought the hitting was great. It was kind of actually nice to see us not have to rely on the long ball. Now that we haven't seen the long ball in a couple games, I would like it to come back, please. I never really wanted it to go anywhere in the first place. I just wanted to see, are we even able to get like a single to drive in a run? And Austin Romine proved that's very doable, as did Travis Demeritte. You got some other guys too, but. Yeah, so that was a great cohesive team win, I thought, on Friday, and it was just good to see the bullpen came out strong once again. What was the final of that game? 7-2, 5-2? 7-2. Okay, yeah, that's right, because Joe didn't pitch that game. That's right. I don't think he pitched that game. No, I don't think he did.
No, he didn't.
Overall that was a really good team win. I thought that was the best one of the season. Obviously, the doubleheader day, I've given my thoughts on the doubleheader itself, so let's kind of get into the game. I'll actually start with the second game first because I didn't watch the beginning of it. At first, I was eating dinner, so I missed the first few innings. But, look, I'm not a huge Trevor Bauer fan. I think Trevor Bauer is the kind of guy that if he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team, you hate him. We've seen that before with players in the past like Jose Valverde, former Tiger. AJ Pierzynski is another one who comes to my mind right away. If they're on their squad, you love them. If they're not really a big fan. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with him. But outside of that, he's a heck of a pitcher. Although he's a loose cannon, I think kind of a bit of a dork at times. I think he's a really good pitcher. It was just it just felt like it was made for him to get the win today in the second game. Only had to go the 7 innings. Had it been 9 innings, you definitely would not have seen him go a complete game because I think his pitch count by the 7th inning.
He was almost at 110 by the time.
So there's no way again, and that kind of goes to my point of, well, I'm not a huge fan of the double headers going only 7 innings because you're probably bouncing Trevor Bauer out of the 7th inning, and then you're getting to that Reds bullpen that's been very crappy for innings 8, 9, and then who knows what happens. But I'm not going to go back in there. I've already discussed that. So
you're not even getting the Reds used their top bullpen guys in the first game.
Exactly.
And so you're getting the back half of the Reds bullpen, and
even their top bullpen guys in the first game, we hit them too. I know we didn't get to them in the bottom half of the 7th when the game on the line, but we still got to them, and mainly in part to a guy named Nick Castellanos, who I'll get to in a second.
Castellanos, who played a tie game in the first one.
yes, exactly. But no, so and the bats just weren't there in that second game. And I don't mean to sound mean when I say this, but the lineup in that second game was kind of the B team. You had Miggy and Scope and Christian Stewart in there, but beyond that, it was Dawel Lugo, Demeritte, Jordy Mercer, Grayson Greiner. So again, I'm not knocking those guys. I think they can all help get team wins. We've seen Travis Demeritte do it in 2 games. He's really made the most of his opportunity. And I really like Travis Demeritte, even outside of his kind of hot start these last couple of games. I would like to see the Tigers somehow utilize him in the future, not necessarily as a starter, but as maybe a late inning pinch runner. He gets a couple of starts here and there. I think he's got a lot of speed on the bases, and I think he could be really beneficial to us going forward. But other than that,
That lineup for the second game is kind of where my questions have already come this week, because I didn't quite understand why so many guys were sitting, because there's a day off tomorrow. There's a day off Monday.
Yep.
There's probably a day off coming Tuesday. And so it just didn't feel like as necessary. Now, in a normal situation, that feels like a situation where, when I lived in Philly, I would often listen to Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio. And that was when Andy Reid was coaching the Eagles. And famously, Andy Reid scripts the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
And there's no changing it. No matter what's happening, this is what the first drive of the game is going to look like. And that's kind of what it felt like with this lineup card for the second game, is that it was like created when we didn't have any days off in the schedule for the first 20 games. And now there has been a day off, and there will continue to be. days
Most
off,
likely.
and so
Yeah.
so it didn't feel like
Sit.
very dynamic management to me.
Also, it was funny because Candelario was going to sit yesterday because he was ice cold, but then in the first game, he has a really nice game at the plate. So in my mind, I would have kept him going. Like it's almost like when you're playing poker. If the table's hot, keep going, kind of thing. So or maybe you walk away. I don't know. I don't really ever play poker. I don't know why I used a poker analogy, but I think that's how it is, right?
It's actually funny because I almost used a poker analogy when I was talking about upping the TV broadcast, because poker without the TV broadcast is a very boring game to watch if you don't know. But then they figured out how to broadcast it, and it took off in popularity. Yeah. And so I think that that could be the next resurgence of baseball, is to figure out what the baseball version of the pocket cam is.
If you ever wanted to start a poker podcast, please ask someone else. Other than watching Oceans 11, 12, 13, and 8, I don't know much about the sport, but to each their own. But no, yeah. So maybe playing Jamer in that second game would have kind of made sense because he had such a good first game. I mean, we know he's been a wizard at third base with the glove, so don't got to worry about him there.
We saw how good he's been in the second game, because there were some plays that he would have made.
Yeah. Lugo at third. Yeah, I didn't really kind of vibe with that one. Maybe I can see you want to get a guy like Jacoby Jones and Nico off because they're playing such. Nico's the captain at short, Jacoby's the captain of the outfield at being in center. So maybe giving them just a day of rest. But you bring up a great point. There was already a confirmed day off tomorrow, so I don't. No, but hey, you know what? These players need. I'm not going to ever say like, well, keep playing them, even if they're tired. Like if they need rest, they need rest, and maybe that's where they were at, and we just don't know. I could see Romine sitting, obviously catching a doubleheader back to back. I don't care if it's 7 or 9 innings. You probably want some rest. I hate to call the guy out again, but I just don't see where Grayson Greiner fits in with this team at all. At all. I don't understand why it's not Jake Rogers. I really don't. And maybe there's just certain things in life we're not supposed to get. We're just fans. We're not Ron Gardenhire. We're not making those big decisions of who's on the team and who's not. But I just don't get why Griner's still on the team and Jake Rogers is not. It has been said that even if it's not Jake, Jake Rogers, we have 2 huge catchers right now in kind of just waiting around in Dingler and Rogers. And Griner's on the team. I get Romine because he's the veteran presence, but Greiner, again, I'm not knocking the guy. I'm sure he's a great dude. I saw him last year. He's first of all, a tall dude, but on top of that, I know he's got some pop in that bat. I just don't know what his identity on the team is. And there's a couple other players like that as well. And we don't need to get into that today, but every time I see Greiner in the lineup card, I'm like, why is that not Jake Rogers? Why are we not just doing what we did last year with Jake Rogers when we called him up in July when we were clearly out of it? Not saying we're clearly out of it this year, but it's like 60 games. Like what's the worst that can happen? I don't know. Just kind of.
If I need, I feel like there's a greater upside to Jake Rogers than there is to Grayson Greiner. There feels like an actual future with Jake Rogers, where it does not feel that way with Grayson Greiner. And obviously you need somebody that's going to give Austin Romine a break.
Yeah.
And so also, why not let it be Jake Rogers? Because he will do just as well as Grayson Greiner, I think. I don't think there's
100% agree. And also, I know like Greiner's a pretty young in his career catcher as well, but like Jake Rogers, we have been told at least is the catcher of the future. So why not let him get some major league experience right now under a veteran catcher like Romine, who thus far, handling a new pitching staff, but also bringing it on the offensive side as well. I just don't get that. I don't get the move there. And maybe there's something there we're not seeing, and maybe we do see Rogers sometime down the road. But as it stands right now, I don't particularly get that one.
The only thing I can think is that like maybe they're trying to raise Grayson Greiner's stock a little bit so that they can deal him for somebody, because maybe they've made or they've decided that they're just waiting for somebody to offer something for Jake Rogers. Like I don't like. Clearly, a decision has to get made there that one of them is not long for this organization, because, as you said, we have Dylan Dingler as well sitting there. So there's like a plethora of catchers. Yeah, and we need to do something with somebody. And so maybe that's the only thing I can think is that maybe they're trying to play that game. But Al Avila doesn't strike me as that sophisticated of a baseball thinker. I think he's a great. I have come around to Al Avila. I think he's doing a great job with managing this. I think that a lot of the moves that he made that I was maybe a little bit unsure of as they were being made is seeming to bear some fruit this season. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, maybe I'm around. We're watching the Tigers shift a lot, and that comes from both Gardy and Al wanting to invest in
Well, the shift killed us this
statistical-
weekend. Yeah, I
It
mean
did.
the red shift. I mean that first game too. To the Tigers' credit on the hitting side, they were hitting the ball hard, just right at people. I mean it was frustrating. A lot of times they were in the shift too. Poor Miggy. It felt like I think Miggy has to hit the ball to the moon, otherwise he's not going to get on base ever. Yeah, and maybe real quick, kind of going back to the Griner thing, maybe like this is their way of kind of like, hey man, this is kind of your last audition, so to speak, because we've got these other guys, and even if we don't have those guys, we've got a pretty solid veteran catcher that we like. So get with it. But again, we don't need to do a whole podcast on Griner. I like the guy. I just don't know where he fits in with the team, and I feel that way about 3 or 4 other players as well. But just kind of putting a bow on the first game. One thing we haven't even talked about yet, Tyler Alexander.
Incredible. Like the brightest spot of today. It was so,
and it's also like, where the hell did this come from? Like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? Yeah, it was so bizarre. I couldn't. Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. I tweeted out from our account. I mean, obviously he set the record for relievers, I believe it is.
Yep.
He did not break the all-time record. That still belongs to Tom Seaver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And then he tied the American League record, which is with was it Doug Fister, I think?
Held by Doug Fister, so it is now
Doug
co-held
Fister.
by 2 Tigers pitchers.
That's so. I love baseball, but sometimes I hate baseball because their stats are so weird. It's like he's the first guy to ever throw 13 strikeouts on a Sunday afternoon while his shoes were untied and chewing bubble gum, and it's like, oh, yeah, great, cool. I don't
It's really
know.
cool to have 120 plus years of statistics, but
Yeah.
it's also like
Kind of annoying sometimes.
We're a little hunting for the record.
Yeah, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here to find something. But no, I mean, obviously, all jokes aside and all kind of bits and whatnot, big shout out to Tyler Alexander. That was an awesome performance. You are exactly right, Alex. By far, that was the shining spot of today's kind of annoying and frustrating double header. I'm going to always do those in air quotes because I don't think they're true double headers. But so yeah, shout out to Tyler Alexander. And honestly, I don't know why he didn't really start the game over Ronnie Garcia. To be fair, though, the start Ronnie Garcia had last week against the Royals, he was fine. He just gave up the Whit Merrifield home run, and that was what kind of killed him again today too, was the long ball by a guy we are very well known by.
It was the exact same pitch, actually, that he threw to Whit Merrifield. That
Nick hit. So let's talk about Mr. Castellanos for a little bit, shall we? First of all, almost ironic that the man who bitched about Comerica Field being way too big hits 2 home runs in one game, both pretty much no doubters as well. But then also kind of funny that once again, and I don't mean to laugh at him because I love Nick Castellanos, so we're kind of joking at him right now. I think I loved him with the Tigers. I would gladly welcome him back to Detroit anytime, any place. But also still doesn't really quite have it figured out in right field. By the way, though, that was not his ball. I don't know what the hell he was doing over there.
Yeah.
That was the center fielder's ball by far. You know what? But sometimes defensive miscues like that, I couldn't believe he dropped it. I honestly couldn't believe it. I thought for sure he was going to get there. But, that kind of swung in our favor, and unfortunately Joe couldn't come and get it done in the 7th. But I also think Joe is one of those pitchers, too. If he's not pitching in a safe situation, he struggles.
There's
that issue last
a
year.
safe situation that really focuses him in, and even if he gets himself into a little bit of trouble, he's able to pitch around it in a safe situation when he knows he has a little bit of breathing room, that the game is not lost if he lets up a run. Yeah, but it is definitely a scenario where he doesn't quite come in as sharp in a situation where it's not a true save opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on in the future. But, we got to give a lot of credit, too, overall to this bullpen. I know they didn't have a great game in that Monday game against Kansas City. But other than that, I mean,
yeah, they've been great.
For the most part, they've been great. And I got to give them props, man. We, if we're going to call them out when they're bad, we got to give them love when they're good. And that 7, 8, 9 of Soto, Farmer, and Jimenez has been great. I mean, I hope this is not just a little 10-game fluke. I hope we can continue this because finally maybe we have a sense of where this bullpen is going. And even other guys too. Tyler Alexander obviously had a hell of a game, just had a good week overall as well. Schreiber, Brian Garcia, Funkhauser, who had a really bad game on Monday, even came back the other night and pitched himself a pretty solid inning there Cisnero. So, I mean, the bullpen in general has been real solid, which has been great for these first 10 games. Now, granted, it's only 10 games. There's 50 more to go. Let's see what happens, but we got to give them. I think from these first 10 games, the two things I'm going to remember are the bullpen and Jacoby Jones. I know Jacoby had a couple rough at bats these last couple of games, but still, his overall haul, so to speak, of the last 10 games has been phenomenal. So from our first 10 games, I think our MVPs are Jacoby Jones and the Tigers bullpen. And I think also an honorable mention too to Spencer Turnbull. He's tossed 2 great games, so that's been it's been kind of fun to see.
I think the thing that I really liked out of today's game, to pull some other good out of it, is that I actually liked that Soto. I did not like that Soto got himself into a little bit of trouble when he came into the game, but I like that he got himself out of it, that he was able to pitch around that trouble, and that is important to see out of a guy that's going to come in late in games for you, is that he does not fall apart when a runner gets on. He will continue to battle in the way that he needs to and find the outs, and I thought that was a really nice thing to see out of him.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, as much as we would love, Soto, Farmer, and Joe to come in 7, 8, 9 and go, retire the order all on strikeouts, that's just not going to happen. Eventually, these guys are going to get themselves into some trouble. We saw it with Soto today. He was able to get himself out. We saw it with Joe today. Unfortunately, he wasn't. So that's just the nature of the beast. You can't be mad at that, but it's going to happen from time to time. And if they can get themselves in, really all that matters is getting them out. So yeah, we'll see. Overall, so we're going into this week. We'll be 5-5, and I feel like we're a better team than that record shows. I really do. I really feel like our only 2-3 really crap losses were opening day, that Royals game, and even that Royals game was kind of weird because we had the lead for a while, but then the pitching just all around completely imploded. And we hadn't seen anything like that this season. And then the second game of the doubleheader, the Bauer game, we were pretty outmatched. But every other game, win or lose, I feel like we have been in it, and at a point in time could have won it. So that's encouraging. I mean, I kind of wish we were more 6-4, 7-3, but 5-5, it is what it is. You know what? We're not the best. We're not the worst. We're right in the pack. And maybe in a 60-game sprint, that's what you need to do. And then you just kind of strike while the iron's hot. We got to keep in mind, too, we haven't seen the Twins yet. We haven't seen the Sox yet. We haven't seen the Indians yet. We're going to see those guys a lot more down the road. So we just got to kind of wait and see what happens there. But I'm proud of this team. It's frustrating at times. It definitely is a sprint. We're going to keep it going. Hopefully this week we can get these games in against the Cardinals and the Pirates. But I know we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm proud of this team. And I think they've got a lot of fight in them. And hopefully we can see some of these bats getting a little hotter. I still don't think Miggy's quite there. Crone's kind of cooled off. Nico's cooled off a bit. But, luckily the bottom half of the order, with guys like Romine and Jacoby, Candelario's getting there, Stewart's getting there. We didn't really even talk about Maben's on the 10-day DL, and they called up Demerit. And so it's going to kind of be the Demerit and Victor Reyes, I would imagine, would get the bulk of the starts. Funny thing for you real quick. When Victor Reyes first came up in 2018, I just didn't like him. For whatever reason, there's just certain players you're kind of like, yeah, I'm not vibing with him. I don't like him.
I'm feeling it. Yeah.
Every time Victor Reyes comes up now, because he had a pretty nice little season last year, and thus far this season he's been pretty solid. So now I tell myself every time that when Victor Reyes comes up, I say I don't really like this guy, because when I say that, he then gets a hit and proves me wrong. So Victor Reyes, if you're out there watching and listening to this, I do say that I don't like you. I actually do like you, but I only say it because every time I say that I don't like you, you prove me wrong. So keep on at it. I don't like you, but you keep doing great things when I say those words. So it's a weird little abusive relationship, but we got to keep it going if it means we can get a World Series win.
That's right. It'll be great. So yeah, let's move forward a little bit. Let's kind of look at some stuff, baseball at large. I don't want to spend too much time on the COVID-19 impact here because the news is ever changing, and so if we were to give too much specific news, it will be out of date by the time it hits your ears. But just to timestamp it, this is Sunday evening that we are recording this. So by the time you get to this, when the show drops on Monday, we may have some more solid information. But essentially, here's what we know. The Marlins are set to resume their season on Tuesday. The MLB investigation revealed that they were very lax in following safety protocols, including going to strip clubs and casinos. And so that's a problem. The Phillies seem to be past the scare. They obviously did not have an outbreak, but they were the last team to play the Marlins, and so that was where that concern came from. They will resume play on Monday after about a week off due to their exposure to the Marlins and a few subsequent positive tests. Still no players have tested positive. That was where staff members and coaches that had tested positives. And then obviously the Cardinals have had 4 positive tests, which caused a postponement in their schedule. That number is now up to 6 in the traveling party. The latest round of tests, which happened over this weekend, we're waiting the official announcement, which we expect to come on Monday morning about what that is. So check your news feeds after you listen to this podcast, because there's probably updates on the Cardinals. But what Jeff Passan tweeted about it, the quote from Passan is "not good," is what the sources seem to be indicating from him. So the Cardinals haven't played since Wednesday, July 29th. So just a little bit of that. Obviously, that does impact the Tigers, because we were supposed to play the Cardinals on Monday, start a 4-game series with them. That has officially become a game Tuesday night, a 7-game doubleheader. I'll join you in the air quotes. The official editorial position of the Michigan and Trumbull podcast is air quotes around the phrase doubleheader. And on Wednesday with then a game on Thursday, all 4 happening in Detroit. Were originally supposed to be 2 in St. Louis, 2 in Detroit. The Cardinals will be the home team of record in Comerica Park for 2 of the games, which it's a very different home environment for them than playing in Busch Stadium. So all that kind of overhead. Just Luke, quickly, what are your feelings here in this? Obviously, also, the other thing I forgot to mention is Rob Manfred hinted that perhaps baseball could shut down as soon as Monday, then kind of walked that back over the weekend as well. So I feel that was quite a bit of bluster. I think we're way more likely to just continue to see teams like lose a week of play than we are to actually see the season shut down. But that's just kind of my sense of the economics of the situation more than necessarily what the correct move for the health and safety of everybody involved is.
Yeah. Rob Manfred is a bit of an idiot, I must say. And the reason I say that is because he loves to kind of do these scare tactic statements. He did it when we were still negotiating a season. He said at one point in time, I 100% guarantee we will have a season. And then 4 days later, not even that, may have been less than that, he said, well, now I don't know if we're going to have a season. Then what happened? Everyone got all riled up into a frenzy, and then we had a season. And I think he's doing that again right now with these coronavirus tests. And actually, though, although I do still think he's an idiot, it might not be the worst thing in the world, maybe to kind of scare the fear of God and some of these players of being like, hey, if you guys don't start tightening it up, it's done. It's over with. There was reports going out. I'd heard that he had told a lot of local stations or whatever to have like alternative or alternate programming like ready just in case like we were to cancel the season on Monday. I'm with you, Alex. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're just going to start seeing a lot of maybe teams kind of like having to go hit the pause button for 5 to 7 games, something like that. So we'll kind of see what happens down the road there. It is not a great sign for us being Tigers fans that the Cardinals tests are going to probably come in tonight or tomorrow, whatever it may be, and it's not looking good. I also share your thoughts in the fact that I think these games this week might kind of be washed, and we might just be looking forward to the Pittsburgh series later on in the week, but only time will tell with that. When it comes to the players, though, real quick, and I'm going to be a little stern here. When it comes to the players like the Marlins and the Cardinals, because we've been hearing alleged reports that you said it, that players haven't been following the guidelines maybe as well as they should be. We've heard strip clubs, we've heard nightclubs, we've heard casinos, whatever it might be, restaurants, who knows. Players need to lock it down. And here's a real simple way for players to lock it down. And I think it's a 1-strike policy. Baseball goes to the game of 3 strikes, but I think it's a one-and-done policy because someone's stupid actions could potentially jeopardize this entire season for not just them, not just their team, but all 30 teams and the millions of fans around the world who desperately want to watch baseball right now. So I think if a player is caught breaking rules or doing unnecessary extracurricular activities between now and October or whenever their season wraps up, it's real simple. You say you're suspended for the rest of the year and you're not getting paid a dime. And then I think you'll see players go, well, I probably should stop. And I'm sure they'd file grievances and people complain and this and that. But you know what? Let's get a little strict with some of these guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, right now the stakes are so high for this sport to continue. And not only are you being selfish in potentially ruining your team season, or another team season or the season in general, but think of the health implications.
Yeah.
Think of, like, God forbid, one of our Tigers players goes out and they then infect someone like Matt Boyd, who's asthmatic, or Daniel Norris, who has had cancer, or Ron Gardenhire or Dave Clark, who are just older guys. I mean, you always hear about coronavirus. It's not so much the people in their 20s you got to worry about. It's people like our parents who are in their 50s or 60s or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Not only are you potentially ruining the season, but you're also putting those people's lives at risk. And I know there's a thing to, like, well, they could be asymptomatic, so they may not transfer it. It's BS. Like, just don't do it. You don't need to do it right now. I'm sorry. You can wait 60 days or 2 months to go to some strip club in Atlanta. Like, that strip club's still going to be there. When the season's over, and if you don't get COVID, go have a strip club celebration at the strip club in Atlanta. I don't know. Do what you got to do, but you don't need to be doing it right now. It's so selfish. We've all fought our asses off to get this season, and it's really frustrating that, because of a couple bad apples, the entire tree may fall because of just some stupid decisions. I hope they lock it down, and that's that. I can't say anything more than that. And maybe they got to start doing stricter punishments. Maybe it's something when you're on the road, there's a curfew of you cannot leave your room past 7 or 8 p.m. And if you're caught outside your room, you're not playing that day, or you're fined $50,000. I don't know what the punishment has to be, but there's got to be more stricter punishments put in place. And that's that. There's nothing more that can be said. Players need to start holding other players accountable, but even more than that, human beings and players just need to start holding themselves accountable, knowing that if they go out and do something stupid, it can not only jeopardize the season, potentially someone's life. And it's just that simple.
When you look at the sports that are working, NBA, NHL, NWSL, MLS had 2 teams that they just kicked out of the tournament because they had an outbreak. And so they said, well, okay, you can't come into our bubble, and you don't get to participate in the MLS's back tournament. All these sports in a bubble. Baseball opted not to go to a bubble. Mm-hmm. And arguably that means the players have to be more accountable to themselves about what they're doing. They have to live as though they're in a bubble. They can't, They get to go home to their families. That's the concession. That doesn't mean you get to go to a strip club. It doesn't mean you get to go to the casino. It doesn't mean you get to go pick up the food. Like, have it delivered, do contactless delivery, do what you got to do. Don't go into a restaurant. Just don't do it. Don't go into those places. You don't have to. You get to go home to your families and live in your apartment or your house for this season. That's the thing you get to do by not being in a bubble. But obviously, in some cases, the players can't be trusted to not be in the bubble. And it's one of those things, they got to lock it down. I agree with Rob Manfred in so much as they need to lock, the players need to lock it down. There's only so much the commissioner's office can do, short of just shutting it down. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're going to get to that. Yeah. I don't because even Rob Manfred said again, he does his little scare tactics, which I think are cute, but at the end of the day, they're pretty much meaningless. He comes out one day and says, yeah, we might have to shut the season down. And the next day he comes out and he says, well, I'm not a quitter, so we're going to keep going. It's like, Rob, it's like, you're the commissioner of baseball. If you don't know what's going on, who the hell does? It's not us. It's not the players. It's not the out of work peanut and beer vendors that aren't at the stadiums right now. If you don't know, who the F does, dude? Like, that's where I give him a lot of crap, because I just think sometimes he doesn't even know what he's doing, yet he is the face that's running the show right now. And it's like a boss. It's just like one of those things. It's not great, but so players just got to be smarter. That's all we can say. And maybe hindsight is 2020, and maybe we should have gone with that Arizona proposal. Maybe we should have, but you know what? I think we wanted to try to be more lenient to the players by offering them an opportunity to be like, hey, look, you don't need to stay in some hotel or college campus in Arizona for 2.5 months. Instead, you can go to home to your families at night, but you got to be smart. And right now we haven't seen that. So it's frustrating. Hopefully they can lock it down. And when it comes to teams like the Marlins, and I don't, again, these are all loose rumors that we've heard, that it's players have been going to strip clubs or casinos or out to restaurants, whatever it might be. We've heard that for both the Cardinals and the Marlins. If those are true, I have no sympathy for these teams at all. If they have to forfeit 7 or 8 games, sorry, you got to forfeit 7 or 8 games. What's not fair though is to those teams that they would then be playing. Like, for example, if it gets to a thing for us this week with the Cardinals, we don't play any of these games and they have to forfeit those 4 games and we do as well, then I'll be pissed because now you're messing with us. It's like, you want to go do your own thing and be idiots? Fine. Don't drag us into it with you. So let's hope that doesn't happen. If maybe that scenario happens, maybe we just get another team for 4 games. Maybe we get another NL team, for 4 games or something. But I hope it doesn't come to that. But if it is true and it's teams like the Marlins and the Cardinals, and they're going out to strip clubs and casinos, whatever it might be, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. And if you have to forfeit 7 games because you guys can't keep it in your pants, you want to go out and get $1, lap dance or whatever it might be, you get what you get. And enjoy it because you earned it. So it is what it is. Players, just be smarter. That's it. Not even as players, just as humans in general. We just need to be more smarter and more compassionate and not be so freaking selfish. Good God. I mean, I love baseball, but I mean, if someone came up to me today and they're like, hey, Luke, we have a vaccine for coronavirus that will put the world back to normal, in 3 to 6 months. But in order for you to get it, we have to get rid of baseball. Sorry, bye baseball, bye football. I'll do it in a heartbeat. I mean, any logical human being would do that. Now, there's some people out there that I see on Twitter that I go, yikes, I don't know if they would, but that's a whole other podcast to discuss. But yeah, just in general, players, be smart. It's just, you got to do this till October. And a lot of you guys suck, so you're not even going to make the playoffs anyways. Then you can go to your strip clubs. Hell, we might even be there with you. Who knows? Not us, the Tigers. Alex is a happily married man, and not my jam. But yeah, maybe the Tigers are there. Who knows? It is what it is.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that we sort of brought up is Rob Manfred seems to not know what's going on half the time, and that there's this kind of like rush and influx of information via social media and Twitter and some of the great baseball beat reporters doing a fantastic job of sourcing all of this stuff for us. But then it creates this like wide amount of information that some of it is correct and some of it is very much not. Yeah. And so there's not a lot to go on from there. And one of the things that my brother-in-law pointed out to me yesterday when we were texting about this whole situation, because he is a Cardinals fan, so we were getting excited for this week potentially, and now that we may lose it, but he brought up the point that Rob Manfred and the commissioner's office makes the players and managers of the teams be available to the press nearly daily, and Rob Manfred hasn't actually held a true press conference since February. He's done we've seen him do a couple of very controlled interviews.
MLB Network or whatever.
Primarily on MLB Network. Yeah. On the network he owns as the commissioner of baseball. And so, there's a little bit of a double standard there. And I would love to get a little bit more information and allow guys like Jeff Passan and Buster Olney to go in and actually ask questions of Rob Manfred.
Dude, Passan and Olney and John Morosi, all those guys, they're awesome, man. I mean, I give them all the props in the world for having to navigate this minefield of a season. So I give them, they're the best. And with Manfred, it's just like, dude, if you don't know what's going on, again, who does? You are the top dog. Who does? If you don't know what's happening, please tell us someone that we can talk to, because you're not fit to have your job. I think maybe him and Roger Goodell should go like summering somewhere for the next 15 years. So we don't have to see either of them.
I vote Nate Silver, or not
Adam Silver.
Not Nate. Maybe Nate Silver. Nate Silver would be fine too. He does a great job running 538. But that Adam Silver is just the commissioner of everything. I think he does a great job. The NBA has proven that you can have sports in the midst of this pandemic and on a very high level. And so I think that that is what it is. But kind of staying in the commissioner's office, let's talk about Joe Kelly, who suspended 8 games in a 60-game season.
All right.
For instigating a benches clearing conversation. I don't know. To call it a brawl is incorrect, because
it was not a brawl.
There was no brawling. And benches clearing conversation, I think I'll go with, after throwing at Alex Bregman and taunting Carlos Correa after striking him out. I have some thoughts here, so I'm going to kind of
lead us off.
No, don't mind me.
Please.
Joe Kelly, first of all, is a coward who was taunting Correa and then like actively running back to his dugout as he did it. And so, first of all, if you're going to stand there and taunt the guy that you just struck out, stand there and taunt the guy that you just struck out. And if he charges you, then he charges you. And you've gotten the rise that you wanted, but don't take it into your dugout. Don't instigate the benches clearing that way. Secondly, he wasn't on the Dodgers team that was impacted by the Astros cheating. I get it. The Astros are cheaters. Yes, we all know it. Even if they aren't stripped of their World Series, which they never will be, they will always be the World Series champions that year. We all know they cheated to win that World Series. And so whether there's a real asterisk or not, there's an asterisk. And so the punishment has been levied. Secondly, all the players who did not get suspended, there were no punishments handed out to players, active players on the roster, sure. But they were granted immunity. We knew that going into the investigation, that there wasn't going to be any punishment to the players. And so, yeah, that sucks. But it is what it is. That's life. And the other thing, here's the other thing. You know what team Joe Kelly was on? The Red Sox team that cheated the following season. And so he's part of the problem. And so, like, to think that he's standing up to these, like, this is one of the reasons that the unwritten rules of baseball drive me crazy, because they don't make any sense. They are protecting a thing of honor that there isn't actually any honor in it. And also there's a significant difference between stealing signals, which, by the way, during the broadcast today, we heard the Tigers broadcast team tell you what pitch was going to be thrown because they were looking at the signals from the catcher. Like, we look at it every single game. I get it that it's against the rules, but it's also something that I think baseball, the commissioner's office, could decide tomorrow that, yeah, you can look at the electronic tape of the signals. It's there. It's out in the public. And it just is another thing that teams have to try and compete on, that you have to figure out, add in this way that you have to rotate through your signals so that the guys don't know that you have to signal in a different way, that you have to do all these things. Like, they could just decide that this is part of the fabric of the competition of baseball. And now we're all on the same playing field, because as we know from the Astros scandal, the Red Sox scandal, the Yankees scandal, all these teams are doing it. I'm not saying that every team is doing it, but probably all these teams that hang out at the top of the standings every year, they're probably doing something like it. And ultimately, like, what is the difference between understanding the signs that the catcher is throwing and knowing a pitcher's tendencies and the rotation? This is an extra step of confirmation. You know what pitch is coming next. You also have guys standing on second base. If you have a guy on second that is looking and is also helping to say, like, it's all there already. Throwing a ball at a guy's head, that could significantly end his career.
It could kill him. I mean, honestly,
literally
it
kill
could
him.
Kill someone. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be like over sensitive here, but it could kill someone if it hit just right or whatever. Yeah, it could kill someone.
And it doesn't actually punish anybody for the thing. Because I was also, like, watching, like, the other thing that sent me down this path is somebody showed a clip of a guy with a nice little bat flip and a walk and a pitcher getting mad. And I'm like, yeah, I get that that's against the, like, the unwritten rules of baseball, is that once I hit a home run ball, I just have to jog around the bases. But, like, also sometimes, give me a guy with some swagger, and I would love to have him on my team. And that is when we talk about ways in which to make baseball a little bit more accessible and open to, like, the average fan. It's some of that stuff that I think turns the average fan off, is that these guys don't have, like, you think about, like, the swagger of some of these, of, like, the Pistons, the bad boys. I've been a Detroit sports bias. We often have some of these bad guys, these bad guys, quote unquote, on our teams. Like, we run that way, and it is like we have this. There's a Detroit swagger involved, and I would love to see more of that. But it violates the unwritten rules of baseball for whatever reason. Like, Mickey is a guy that, for whatever reason, gets away with a lot of stuff that I think that
well, here's the thing,
wouldn't get away with.
And I don't want to cut you off your rant, but it's funny you bring that up. Last night I was watching the Sox game with a buddy of mine, and we were both saying how we feel that there's not a lot of characters anymore in baseball. Like, when I was younger and growing up, you had your Miguel Cabreras, you had your David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Sammy Sosa, guys of that nature. And I'm sure there was others, Jose Valverde, Pedro Martinez, Bartolo Colon. I mean, you had these guys who are, like, larger than life characters. And I feel like we don't really have those anymore. Like I feel like it's all become who can have like the coolest bat flip, and who bat flipping, who can be like the best super athlete. Spoiler alert, it's Mike Trout. But like, who can do that? I don't know. I just feel like the days of like having fun characters in baseball have kind of fallen a bit to the wayside. And even though I'm not a huge fan of him, I think you could say Trevor Bauer is definitely a character. I mean, and
yeah,
but like any good story, there's characters you like and characters you don't. So I mean, it's just kind of, it is what it is in that regard. But
you watch wrestling, Luke.
Yeah,
everything needs a heel.
Absolutely. Hey man, Mike the Miz Mizandon's made a hell of a career out of it. So I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. But bringing it back to the Joe Kelly argument, I actually agreed with more of your points than I thought, because I'd seen some of your tweets, and I know we talked before the show. I'll say I'll agree with this. First of all, I agree. Throwing at a guy's head, never okay. I don't care if they cheated to win the World Series or whatever your scenario is. You could potentially kill somebody. I don't care if it's a fastball, a curveball, whatever it might be. I don't like throwing at someone's head, because we've seen guys like Jacoby Jones for our Tigers or Giancarlo Stanton who have had their careers for a season shortened or due to injury because of that happening. And those aren't intentional. I'm just saying it's scary. Mm-hmm. Throwing at the head is always been and always will be for me a huge no-no. I also agree with you in the sense of that he wasn't even on the team. So it's like, dude, you don't even have a dog in this fight. And the point you brought up about 2018 with him and the Red Sox, I didn't even think about that. That's a very good point as well. Where I'll kind of push back a little bit against you is, I don't think just because, though, and this might also be against the point I just made, just because he wasn't on the team that got cheated out of the World Series, I still think he can be pissed off, because I'm pissed off as a fan. I think it's BS. So my only question would be now, when fans can go back to the stadiums next year and watch the Astros play, should fans not then be able to boo them because they weren't on the team? Like, that's my only one thing where I'm kind of like, I think the argument I've seen a lot of people making of like, well, he wasn't even on the team. Like, why is he getting so angry? Because in general, fans are pissed. A group of grown men who are multimillionaires, a lot of them, decided to cheat their way to win a World Series, and then were essentially not punished for any of it. So and that's like the one thing where I kind of, I know sometimes there's the thing of like, you can't take justice into your own hands. But sometimes, man, hey, you paint a target big enough on your back, people are going to take a swing at you, and that's what I think kind of is going to happen, not only here, but throughout seasons to come with teams going against the Astros. Do I think the 8 games was a bit steep? I do. Do I think it's funny that Joe Kelly, who wasn't even on the team, got heftier suspensions and penalties than any of the players on the Astros who cheated? I do think that's a bit ironic. I kind of shake my head at Manfred for that as well, but that's just going back in general. I know they were granted immunity, but I think there should have been some sort of punishment for the players. I mean, the team, lost draft picks and things like that, but players were not. Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and Correa were not personally fined or suspended or anything like that. But that's a whole other discussion. So yeah, I think we're in agreement. I think we're in agreement on about 80% of everything. The one area where I differed a little bit from you, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes the beanball can send a message. Yeah, you're right. If he plops, if we see guys getting hit from the Astros and the shoulders and the back for, and the arms for years to come, that's not going to take anything away. They still have the World Series, and that's not going to change anything. But, for us fans who are kind of pissed, it's like, yeah, you get what you get sometimes. As I said with the Marlins earlier, sometimes you reap what you sow. And, the Astros have a lot of payback coming for them. And I don't want anyone getting hit in the head. I want to make that clear. I don't condone that. I don't think that should ever even be an option on the table, that's okay. It's not. Beanballing someone in the head is 100% wrong. But, the Astros kind of dug their own grave, and now they got to lie in it, so to speak.
I think the thing that I would actually be – I would also – 6-game season, 8 games is a lot. I think somewhere in the 3 to 5 would have been more appropriate. Yep. I also think that I would not be as mad if he had just taunted. I think that would be fine. I think that that's totally fine. I agree. I think that booing is fine. I think that if you want to be, if you strike a guy out like that, and I also think like if he had struck out Bregman like that, right? Then like, yeah, let's taunt him. Let's really like bring it to him. And similarly, like I think that these teams should go out and instead of throwing at the Astros, they should just beat them into an oblivion
Submission
on the field.
Yeah,
they should just
yeah.
destroy the Astros through play. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's a certain amount of, and this is like the thing too with baseball's unwritten rules, right? And he said that when he breaks one of these unwritten rules, I'm admitting that I can't beat him.
Mm-hmm.
That my only recourse is to throw a ball at him. And so I mean, you make a guy being a heel, and I think Joe Kelly can be an effective heel, but I think part of being a heel is that you have to accept the role a little bit, right? Like maybe the 8 games is too much, but like Joe Kelly is like, yeah, you know what? I did what I did, and I stand by what I did, and I will now go serve the punishment of what I did. I will, maybe file your grievance and get it reduced, but in general, don't like it's really much more the people that are like either like truly defending Joe Kelly, or are saying, why do I get punished? It's like, well, because you did a thing, and so you're going to get punished for it.
Yeah, you can't shoot the gun and then be shocked when the cops come to say, well, you're going to jail. You shot the gun. I mean, that's how it has to be. I think in one sense too, though, you kind of said him walking away. I do agree. Like if he's going to talk, maybe talk and just like go at him. Don't like walk away. But in the era that we're currently in with social distancing, maybe he was just practicing what Dr. Fauci wants us all to do, which is to keep 6 feet apart. Granted, it was a little bit more than 6 feet the distance. He was damn near back in his dugout. I'm pretty sure he was, and he was still chirping. But it was not a brawl by any means. But it was definitely kind of fun to see. And we knew it was going to happen sooner or later. And I'll tell you, I think we're going to have, even when we can kind of be closer to one another and fans are back, it's only going to be worse next season. So I don't think this is over for the Astros by any stretch of the imagination. And, they just they're going to have to deal with it. And I don't feel bad for them. They did what they did, and now they got to pay the piper.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's one of those that I just am very much looking forward to the excitement of having fans back in the stadium, because I have gone on the MLB ballpark stadium, and I have clicked the boo button at the Astros. It is not nearly as satisfying as one would want it to be to stand in the stadium and boo the Astros.
Yep.
But I also think that, certainly the Astros is significantly more egregious than any of these other scandals. But I don't think that, like the Red Sox are sort of getting a pass because we're all still really mad at the Astros. And so.
Yeah, but, they say with the Red Sox that there was like no conclusive evidence, like it was questionable. But yeah, it's all a mess. It's a mess. But what are you going to do? Joe Kelly was the first one to kind of make his mark, and I'm sure he won't be the last. So it's what it is.
It's really too bad that no one will get a chance to throw at Joe Kelly, because the
no pitchers can.
The DH is universal now. So.
Yeah, is what it is.
Oh man! All right, let's quickly take a look at the week ahead. We have 4 games against the Cardinals scheduled, as we have mentioned earlier in the podcast, and by the time you listen to this, as it drops on Monday morning, you may already know the fate of these games. But let's assume that they do happen, Luke. What are you hoping to see out of this 4-game set with the St. Louis Cardinals, a team that we talk about as being perennially fantastic?
Always can never sleep on the Cardinals, even when they look like this might be like more of a down year for them, which I don't really think they ever have those to a full extent like we've had in the past. They're always a good team, so you got to come out competitive. Same thing as always. I want to see pitchers dominating the strike zone early on. We've seen that with guys like Gregory Soto, Spencer Turnbull, Buck Farmer, Joe Jimenez. Those guys really kind of lead by example in that way. Even Ivan Nova did that last week, but I'm really looking again at Matt Boyd. I'd like to see Matt Boyd come out and do that. Michael Fulmer, Daniel Norris, guys like that. So do keep that going. And I want to see just, more of the regulars kind of get going hitting. We're through 10 games now. Really need to kind of get Miggy going, Nico going, CJ Crone. I'd love to see, Romine, Jacoby Jones, Scope kind of continuing the hot streaks they've been on the whole 10 games. Stewart and Candelario seem to kind of finally be coming into their own. So let's see that continue. And let's get that long ball back. It's been a few days, it's been a few games since we've seen it. Let's get it back. And if we're going to be doing these 7-inning double headers, I would really like to see us win one of them, maybe even 2. That would be real swell to see. So I'll be honest right now. Again, this episode's dropping on a Monday, so by this point in time, there could already be news. I'm not holding my breath for this series. I have a feeling everything we've kind of been hearing from Jeff Passan in those tweets that there's more positive tests incoming. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in the basket that this is going to happen. And it sucks. My father is a diehard Cardinal fan, and it's very rare that we get to see our teams play each other. So this was going to kind of be a fun thing for us this week. I know, Alex, you've got tons of Cardinal fans in your family as well. So I'm sure you were looking forward to that too. But it's what it is. I hope we can get it figured out. I'd love to see us get some games, because if these games get postponed or delayed, I don't know when we make them up. I mean, I would assume just at some point, maybe at the end of September, early October. I'm actually wondering maybe if MLB has set some time aside for that last week of September or early October of like, okay, anyone that needs to make up 3 or 4 games, now's the time to do it. So maybe they haven't. We'll have to kind of wait and see there. But yeah, if we get the games in, I want to see pitchers dominating early and more of our regular guys really start coming into their own in terms of hitting. And let's get that long ball back and win a doubleheader game.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing, in addition to what you've mentioned, is runners in scoring position. The team is, through 10 games, batting 186 with runners in scoring position, and that is not a recipe for a winning season.
Yep.
And so regardless of if it's starting to hit home runs when we get runners in scoring positions, I don't care. If it's a single, if it's a home run, if it's a triple, it doesn't matter. I just want us to start seeing us get some hits with runners in scoring position on a more regular basis. Get that above 200 maybe this week. That would be fantastic. That's kind of my biggest thing to see in these games against the Cardinals. And then we do have 3 games scheduled for the weekend at Pittsburgh. For whatever reason, always our kryptonite even in a good year. So for me, it's just coming away with, I would love 2 wins in Pittsburgh. That's kind of the big goal. I don't really care how we get them. That's for me what I'm looking for out of that Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. And I mean, this is all up in the air right now because as at the time of recording on Sunday night, we don't know what's going on with these Cardinals games earlier in the week. I do know Matt Boyd is scheduled, I think, to pitch on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. So assuming those games don't happen and he goes to Pittsburgh, I want to see Matt Boyd come out strong. I know I've made a lot of comments about him looking kind of lost up there and not attacking hitters. I want to see that Matt Boyd that we know he can be, that we have seen him be in the past. I want to see him go out there, maybe throw 6 or 7 innings, and he gives up 1 or 2 runs, gives up a walk, but you know what? He gets those high strikeouts, 9, 10, 11 plus strikeouts. We know he can do it. We've seen him do it before. I want to see the Matt Boyd that we know and love come to play this week, whether it's against the Cardinals or the Pirates. Hashtag extend Matt Boyd. Hashtag Tigers win. And let's keep this momentum going. Hey, 5-5 could be a lot worse. Again, we both agree. We think we're much better than a 5-5 team. Definitely, I think maybe I've let a couple wins slip away from us, but that's in the past. Let's move on. And let's just keep this train rolling as long as the train is even an option. I mean, as long as the train's running in the first place, let's keep it rolling. So let's do this.
Yeah, and just to, sort of for context for everybody, this is more or less the equivalent of being 500 at the 1-month mark in the season, give or take a few days. And I think that anybody who's been around baseball would say, yeah, that's great. Let's get out of the first month at 500, and we can build from there. And we've kept ourselves in a position to be competitive for a playoff spot. And that's before expanded playoffs. And so now with expanded playoffs, we're definitely right in a fine spot. The other thing we're watching for this week, we are on Casey Mize watch. It does seem likely that we are closer and closer to a Casey Mize start. It's just a matter of when that's going to kind of fall into the calendar. It was potentially going to be today if we hadn't had the rain out Saturday and we hadn't had these question marks looming with the Cardinals. And so kind of trying to figure out what that's going to mean. One of the other things, too, that I was just reading before coming on the air, just as a quick side note, one of the things that is in consideration is that as you waive somebody or drop somebody off, the odds of them becoming a Miami Marlin are very high right now because the Marlins are looking for anybody that they can snag from anywhere to fill out that roster.
I think if you've ever picked up a baseball and thrown that baseball in your life, you have a chance to play for the Miami Marlins. And that is why I'll be taking my talents to South Beach this week, and I will try to play center field for the Miami Marlins. I'm not as fast as I used to be. Drinking in college will do that to you, but I'll give it a shot. Why not?
I think you got a great shot, Luke.
Thank you.
You certainly can't be worse than having nobody in center field.
That's true. Hey, man, glass half full. Yeah, this is going to be a good week. Let's hope we can get these games with the Cardinals. Fingers crossed, be positive, try to be, and let's hope it happens. But if not, we'll just keep on going. I like this team right now. They're a lot more fun to watch than last year. I mean, and it's just overall, it's been a good start to the season. There's definitely it's not been perfect by any means, but there has been a lot of positive things that come from the first 10 games. And I hope to see those positive things continue as we, roll into this week.
Absolutely. And folks, we will be on Twitter throughout most every game that happens this week. We will be there throughout the week as well as news unfolds. Also, look out for us going live on our Facebook page. We do that at least once a week. And so we will be there ready with news, hopefully with some game analysis, game previews, game reviews. And we will just keep rolling as long as this season keeps on going. So we will talk to you soon. Luke, I'll see you soon.
See you, buddy.